Okay, here I am with my tutor Solomija book. And I should first explain how I found Solomija. I found Solomija through my friend Connor Klein, the language czar, and he studied at the Ukrainian Language and Culture School of Lviv. And Solomija is the director of the school.
Yeah.
She is also a professor of linguistics at the Lviv National University. So she has two jobs. And I was very fortunate to find Solomija, and she has helped me tremendously. And I thought what we do is, we're going to have a video in English now, and we're going to deal with 3 questions, and then we're going to have the same 3 questions in Ukrainian. And you'll see that in my Ukrainian I make a lot of mistakes, but I feel that I have improved. But we'll do the first video in English, and we'll cover the same questions in Ukrainian. And what's the first question?
Steve, thanks for your introduction. What do you think about our method of learning?
I mean, it's subjective, but I'll give you an example. Of course, I studied with you for about 3-4 months on Skype. And then I did a lot of listening and reading in Ukrainian, so I had this sort of passive knowledge of Ukrainian. I thought I was pretty good. And then I was in Slovakia, in Bratislava, and I met some Ukrainians there. I couldn't say a thing. I came to Lviv, and for 7 days, every day, you have taken me to museums, to all of the main sites here in Lviv, and every day we spoke for 6 hours. And after each 3-hour section, you had to go home and rest. And then you sent me a list of about 15 phrases, which I imported into Link and I studied. And I think as a method of activating one's passive knowledge and learning about a place and getting massive exposure in the language, I think it's an outstanding method. And I would like to work on this for the future. In other words, a lot of passive learning and some internet, Skype discussions, and then eventually going to the country and having this concentrated interaction with a very good, I should say, very good tutor who corrects me now because I want to be corrected. And I continue to make mistakes, but I feel that it has been very effective.
Thank you. Steve, you are a great polyglot. Who knows 15 languages, and in particular Polish and Russian. Do you think Ukrainian language will have a bad influence on your Russian?
Interesting question. In a way, I don't yet know, because I haven't gone now and just spoken Russian. But I have the feeling that because all of the structures, the grammatical structures in the Slavic languages are 90% the same. There are some special things in Ukrainian or Polish, but by and large they're very similar. The same problems. Verbs of motion, aspects of verbs, case endings, and so forth. So I feel that my work with you, where you have worked hard to get me to improve on my accuracy, that this is going to help me in the other languages. I am sure, and we'll do this when we speak in Ukrainian. I'll try to speak in Russian. There'll be some initial interference, but I feel in the long run, I'm going to be better in all my Slavic languages because I studied Ukrainian. And I think Ukrainian is, in a way, a very useful language because it has a Cyrillic alphabet, like Russian, like Belarusian, like Bulgarian. It's in terms of its vocabulary, it's kind of in between Russian, Polish, Czech. So I think it's actually a good language to focus on in order to improve my level in all my Slavic languages. We will see. Time will tell.
Okay. And why Ukraine? Why Ukrainian? Steve, you don't have any Ukrainian roots.
Right.
But you are very interested in Ukrainian political, social, economical, and cultural life.
Okay. It's interesting because I think when you study a language, you start to discover a new world. So Ukraine for me was, I would have almost had trouble finding it on a map. Like, where's Ukraine? What's Ukraine? A lot of people don't know that much about Ukrainian history. Is it a part of Russia? What is Ukraine? Once you start studying the language, and I came to Ukrainian because I had studied Czech, Russian first, then Czech, and then Ukrainian. There's however many, 45, 50 million people there. It's interesting. You start studying the language. And with the language, you start reading about the history. And I find an e-book on Ukrainian history. I find an audiobook on Ukrainian history. And so I began to discover this world, the interesting history, the influence of the original Kiev and the Rus, the influence of the Lithuanian, Polish Commonwealth, and so forth, and the Russian, Tsarist Empire. And so it just opens up a fascinating world, and you discover that Ukraine is its own country, with its own history, with its internal divisions and so forth. And it just grows on you. There's an expression in French which I always use, l'appétit vient en mangeant. So any language, whether it be Czech or Ukrainian, the more you study, the more you learn, not only about the language, about the people. And I think that Ukraine, I think it's, in terms of area, the largest country in Europe. 45, 50 million people is a lot of people. Rich history, kind of with connections to Poland, with connections obviously to Russia, with connections to even to sort of the Austro-Germanic world, because part of Poland, or part of Ukraine was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So it's a unique crossroad. It's a unique crossroad. So I found it very rewarding. If that answers your question.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And we're going to try to do have the same discussion in Ukrainian. I'll make lots of mistakes. So please don't ask me for subtitles, because it's a lot of work to do that. Instead, you'll be able to follow the same discussion in Ukrainian. Bye for now.